Hey folks, good morning and welcome to another episode of Steelers Morning Rush. I'm Alan Saunders. It is Tuesday, October 1st. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 3-1. Head coach Mike Tomlin will be speaking to myself and the rest of the media this afternoon, just after 12 o'clock noon at the UPMC Sports Complex on the South Side. I'll be there. Be back here on the channel with more with Zachary Smith after that, right around 6 p.m. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications if you're here on the YouTube channel, or subscribe if you're listening somewhere else, and you won't miss a thing. Yesterday, I talked a lot about the Steelers offense, both on this show and with Smitty in the afternoon, and the problems with the Steelers offense. And it's fair, the Steelers offense had a lot of problems. The Steelers offense also scored 24 points in that game, which is the most they've scored to that point this season. And the Steelers defense gave up 27 points, which is the most they've given up to this point this season. And so, I think we can recognize that the Steelers defense is probably going to be leaned on to do more than the Steelers offense this season. And I want to talk a little bit more about the defense and what went wrong against the Colts. And it was a little bit less intuitive. And so I needed to go back and watch some of the All-22 to really get a feel for what I think is a good answer for what went wrong against the Colts. There are some things I can answer pretty easily. One is that they did not do a very good job when Anthony Richardson was in the game of reading the mesh between the quarterback and the running back for those read option plays. If you don't know what a read option play is, I actually talked all about option football and read option football in a previous episode that I will link underneath this one. But they didn't do a very good job. If you watch the play where actually Richardson gets hurt and fumbles, he completely fools both Nick Herbig and Patrick Queen. Both of the play side linebackers go to the running back, and he goes running upfield untouched until Deshaun Elliott catches him from behind 20 yards later, something like that. I didn't think they did a very good job of just stretching out Jonathan Taylor. He's a downhill runner, and they let him get cracks on the inside of their defense and did not force him to the outside, which I think is a repeated problem. But I think mostly the biggest problem I see as well, and Joey Porter probably needs to catch one, if not both of those interceptions. But I think the biggest problem is the Steelers are just a little bit too predictable on defense, and I thought the Colts did a really nice job of taking advantage of what the Steelers were predictably in, not only in general, but also very specifically finding the weak points in this defense. There are not a lot of them, but there was a lot of running at Nick Herbig. There was a lot of throwing at Peyton Wilson and Beanie Bishop. I think they've very clearly identified the areas that might be weaknesses and attacked them pretty nicely. Tip of the cap to Shane Steichen, but I think Terrell Austin probably needs to be a little bit more diverse, a little bit more. This is not we talk a lot about how the Steelers offense is going to keep things close to the vest. They're going to keep it simple. And yesterday's afternoon drive was all about how they don't trust the offensive line to protect. They don't trust Justin Fields not to turn the ball over. So they're not going to do crazy things. This Steelers defense should have lots of faith in almost all of its members to be able to do crazy things. And I just don't think we've seen that so far. And this thought that I had about talking about the defense today actually went right in line with a comment from yesterday's Morning Rush from Alan Burkabile. I don't know. We'll go with Alan B, who's another Alan. Said, Hey, Alan. You can do a Morning Rush episode explaining cover 2, cover 3, dime and nickel packages, and other defensive formations. I would really appreciate that. I hear this all the time, but I don't fully understand. You did a great job explaining holding. Your content is always good. So I did talk about some of the differences in some of the formations and the personnel in a previous episode. I'll have to see if I can find that. But what I want to just very specifically talk about today is the Steelers' favorite defense. And the Steelers' favorite defense, especially when they're playing nickel, which they were doing most of the game on Sunday. And a nickel defense means that you have one fewer defensive lineman and you have one extra cornerback. So when the Steelers are in base defense, they have 3 down linemen, Cam Hayward, Keanu Benton, and Larry Ogunjobi. And they have 2 cornerbacks, Joey Porter and Dante Jackson. When they go into nickel, they take one of those 3 defensive linemen off the field, and they bring Beanie Bishop on the field. Steelers also this year have generally flipped their linebackers in the nickel. Landon Roberts plays in the base defense, and Peyton Wilson plays in the nickel, while Patrick Queen stays on the field the whole time. So instead of having the starting front 7, you have Beanie at slot corner and Peyton Wilson at one linebacker spot, and generally Keanu Benton, but it could be any of the 3 defensive linemen and Landon Roberts off the field. When the Steelers are in nickel, they feel half naked. Right? This is a defense that loves to stop the run, and Beanie Bishop, not very big, right? He's not going to do a lot of run stopping, okay? Now, Deshaun Elliott is the Steelers' strong safety, is about twice the size of Beanie Bishop. I mean, not actually, but he's a big guy. And so they want to get Deshaun Elliott close to the line of scrimmage so that he can help. If the idea of a nickel is you think they're probably going to pass, but what if they run? Okay. You want to have Deshaun Elliott in a place where he's able to play both. You don't want to have him standing 12 yards off the ball. Okay. That means he can't help run support. Okay. So the Steelers want to play nickel. They want to have the best of both worlds. They want to have nickel personnel out there, but they want to have 8 men in the box so that they can still defend the run. And the way they accomplish this most of the time is playing a defense called spot drop cover 3. And I'm going to explain that defense. They played it a lot against the Colts, and the Colts absolutely annihilated it. So I feel like this is a very specific thing. Whiteboard time. I know some of you get very excited about this. So let's see where I can get this and still have the microphone. One of these days, we're going to mount this on the wall, and we're all going to be able to do this much easier. So here's our standard 11 personnel offense. We have 1 wide receiver. We have 2 wide receivers. We have 3 wide receivers. We have a tight end here attached to the formation, a running back, and a quarterback, okay? And the Steelers are a nickel, which means they have their ends. This is TJ Watt and Nick Herbig, and here's your 2 defensive tackles. Here's your linebackers, Wilson and Queen. Okay, here's your nickel, Beanie Bishop, lined up over the slot. Here's 1 corner. Here's another corner. And here's Minkah Fitzpatrick up there. And there's Deshaun Elliott down here. Okay, so this is how the defense is going to line up pre-snap, unless they're disguising it, which they do sometimes. But this is generally a pretty typical alignment. So this is how they're going to look. But this is where they're going to cover. So in spot drop cover 3 means you have 3 deep players. This safety, Minkah, is responsible for the entirety of the deep middle of the field, okay? And then you have 2 other players who are in deep zones, and those are these corners. So these corners have to carry their players all the way down the field if they release down the field. Or in this case, you have 2 wide receivers on each side, okay? So they just have whoever goes deeper, all right? So if this tight end runs a corner like this, okay, and this receiver just runs a hitch, okay, then the corner takes the deeper player. The rule for the outside corners in cover 3 is as deep as the deepest man, okay? You need to be as wide as the widest, deep as the deepest, okay? And that's a difficult assignment. So as a result, cover 3 corners usually play one of 2 techniques, okay? They usually play what's called bail, meaning they line up very close to the receiver, but then as soon as the ball snaps, they run away, okay? Or they play off. They'll have a big cushion, all right, 10 yards off, something like that. Because they have to be able to carry this player all the way down the field. If you are an older Steelers fan and you can remember, like, Ike Taylor was like the model of a cover 3 corner. He did this constantly, okay? Now, underneath, you have all this open area. Now, you could play cover 3 man, all right, where this is a man here, this is a man here, this is a man here, this is a spy. Okay, you could do that, or a robber, or whatever. But the Steelers don't usually do that. They do what's called spot drop. Each of these 4 players underneath is going to have a zone, okay, and they're going to run to a spot in the middle of that zone as soon as the ball is snapped, and that's why it's called spot drop, all right? So this is what spot drop cover 3 looks like. You have these corners with deep responsibility and safety in the middle of the field is Minkah. And then each of these guys is going to run to a zone. Now, why zone versus man? Well, it gives you the ability to have this defense work against different personnel. If we take this tight end off the field, for example, and make this another slot receiver, we can still call this defense, right? What if they bring this running back out here in motion? They can still call this defense, and they're not giving it away either with the man zone indicator. So it's flexible. It allows for flexibility, right? You can't give someone a man-to-man coverage assignment that they just can't accomplish. You cannot put Patrick Queen, if this was a slot receiver here instead of a tight end, you can't put, well, I mean, I guess you could, but it's not a good idea to be regularly giving Patrick Queen man-to-man assignments against a slot receiver, okay? But in a zone where he only has to follow him for so long, it can work, okay? So this is And the big benefit of this defense, again, is that this guy, safety, is down here. Deshaun Elliott is down here, ready to take on this tight end and stop the run. So this is a run-stopping defense out of nickel personnel. The Steelers call this all the time. Okay, so what are the weaknesses of this defense? Okay, the first obvious weakness of a cover 3 defense is that these corners in bail technique or off-ball technique are very susceptible to hitches, to back shoulders, to anything that starts and looks like it's going to go down the field and then comes back, okay? Because they have to get deep. They have to get depth. And so anything that starts and looks like it's going to go down the field and then comes back is susceptible. And there's not a lot of help in the 0 to 5 yard range because this guy has to line up. Elliott's way over here over the tight end for his run responsibilities. He's got a long way to go. These outside zones have a long way to go to get to their spot. And so it's weakness there, okay? It has another weakness down the seam. So if you send up this guy on a deep route, the corner's going to go with him. Now you can send this guy up here, and there's nobody. The safety has to come all the way over, okay? That's another weakness. But the Colts actually attacked a third weakness that is not really as well known, but if you have an idea that spot drop cover 3 is coming, you know where these spots are. And there are soft places in between these spots where you can complete passes. And so the Colts not only did that, but there are plays. I've got a lot of lines here. Let's see if I can clean it up a bit. There are plays where the Colts were sending guys up and over, headed for these, and then the underneath receivers, that's a tackle, are just going straight to these spots. And so you have these linebackers or safeties or whoever crashing into these known weaknesses of their defense, right? And opening up passing lanes for medium depth passes over here. If you just give up these 5 yard, 7 yard routes in between the underneath zones, I mean, generally you're okay with that. But the Colts found all these big plays in here by attacking these weak points in the zone with the underneath players and then opening stuff up outside over the top of it. It was a really nice job by Steichen of attacking the Steelers' favorite defense. There isn't really a magic bullet for, there's no response to that attack plan. The response to that attack plan is don't get into a place where you don't know if the offense is going to run or pass and be able to fully commit yourself to one or the other, right? Like that defense is trying to be both. It's trying to be nickel personnel, but strong against the run. As a defense, you got to get an offense into a place where you don't have to hedge your bets, right? You need to, if you notice, what happens is this game goes on, so Jonathan Taylor becomes less and less effective, right? He had 45 yards in the first quarter and very little, like the second, third, and fourth. And that's because the Colts were winning. The Colts were obviously running. The Steelers could just play base defense. They did not need to hedge, right? And so that's why the Steelers defense is so much better when it's playing from ahead. And I think the Colts did a really nice job of picking this apart. It's also why, Richardson, honestly, his absence didn't hurt the Colts because for the game plan the Colts had installed to beat the Steelers defense, other than the quarterback running aspect of it, they didn't really need Anthony Richardson. They weren't trying to fit deep. Honestly, I think Flacco was better at executing that plan than Anthony Richardson would have been. He's a more accurate passer. He understands the weaknesses in the defense better. He reads the defense better. Richardson might have a better playmaking ability, but for the plan that Steichen had in to attack the Steelers defense, Flacco was actually probably a better option for him from the beginning. Certainly, once the Colts had a lead and they were able to run the ball a lot and really force the Steelers into those run-heavy looks, then it was pretty easy for Flacco, except for when he had guys around him, but he did a good job of navigating that as well. I've talked for a long time, so I'm going to let you guys go, and I've got to get going. But like I said, make sure you stick around for more here on the YouTube channel. Hopefully, Alan, that explained at least one part of your question. And like I said, I do have a couple of other those answered in previous episodes. If you got any more questions like this, we'll try to dedicate at least one episode a week to some sort of in-depth discussion of football knowledge, and I'll try to tie it in to what's going on with the team at hand. Of course, Smitty and I will have all the reaction to Tomlin Tuesday on the afternoon drive later today. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And until next time, enjoy.